Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace, mercy, and a blessing of God be with you all. My dear brothers and sisters, on behalf of West Michigan Islamic Center, the members and participants, we welcome you all this evening in our second annual English event. We really appreciate and value your participation and attendance tonight. And our program for tonight hopefully will not be too long, though we will enjoy together the program. Our agenda for tonight will be reading verses of the Holy Quran by our brother Hadi Mehmalbaf, and then we will listen to our guest lecture for approximately 30 to 40 minutes, and following that we all will have the opportunity to ask questions and give comments. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, our brother Jalal Mughniya. Mr. Mughniya was born in Dearborn, Michigan. He was raised in Lebanon and returned back to Dearborn to pursue his education. He completed his bachelor degree in political science and psychology, and he is currently pursuing a Juris Doctorate degree while acquiring Islamic studies. Brother Mughniya was instrumental in establishing several Islamic organizations for the purpose of educating communities, and specifically student bodies, in the teaching of School of Thought of Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them. He is a leading activist nationwide, pursuing the delivery of the principle of Islam, using innovative methods to advance the understanding of religion through new media. He changed the delivery of religion information through his work, which can be seen on AscentTV.net and YouTube.com. Before the beginning of the reading of the Holy Quran, I would like to inform you all about our topic and subtopic for tonight. And our topic will be titled Muhammad, the Manifestation of Mercy. The lecture will be historical in its analysis, deriving the principles and morals of contemporary relevance. In the lecture, we will focus on the personality of the Prophet, the manners of the Prophet, Islam and women, and Islam and non-Muslims. And now it's time to listen to some verses of the Holy Quran by reading and cited by Brother Hadi Mehmalbaf.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. شيء قدير إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار ربنا إنك من تدخل النار فقد أخزيته وما للظالمين من أنصار ربنا إننا سمعنا مناديا ينادي للإيمان أن آمنوا بربكم فآمنا ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا وآتنا ما وعدتنا على رسلك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد فاستجاب لهم ربهم أني لا أضيع عمل عامل منكم من ذكر أو أنثى بعضكم من بعض فالذين هاجروا وأخرجوا من ديارهم وأوذوا في سبيلي وقاتلوا وقتلوا لأكفرن عنهم سيئاتهم ولأدخلنهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ثوابا من عند الله والله عنده حسن الثواب لا يغرنك تقلب الذين كفروا في البلاد متاع قليل ثم مأواهم جهنم وبئس المهاد لكن الذين اتقوا ربهم لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها نزلا من عند الله وما عند الله خير للأبرار وإن من أهل الكتاب لمن يؤمن بالله وما أنزل إليكم وما أنزل إليهم وما أنزل إليهم خاشعين لله لا يشترون بآيات الله ثمنا قليلا أولئك لهم أجرهم عند ربهم إن الله سريع الحساب يا أيها الذين آمنوا اصبروا وصابروا ورابطوا واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون صدق الله العلي العظيم صل اللهم على محمد وآله الطاهرين
Our thanks and appreciation for our brother Hadi for citing the verses of the Holy Quran. And now it's our time to listen to our guest speaker. May God bless him. Please join me to welcome him.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب، والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما أرسلناك إلا رحمة للعالمين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. In the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful, peace and blessings be upon Muhammad and his holy progeny, and peace and blessings be upon you all tonight. First, I'd like to send my thanks and appreciation to the organizers and the coordinators of this event. It's much needed, and I'm honored to be here, so thank you for participating, and I hope that this session would be beneficial for all of us. And again, I'm very appreciative that we're going to be having a Q&A at the end. I believe that's the most important section. So hopefully my presentation is not going to be too long. It's going to cover some important issues, some that were addressed as the subtopics and the outline of what we're going to be discussing. And it's mainly going to be revolving around the personality of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and the religion of Islam. Because essentially the personality of the Prophet is a reflection of this religion of Islam. And essentially, the reflection of the individuals who adhere to this religion should be the same reflection of that Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. The Prophet was born in 570 AD, and he passed away in the year 672. The Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was an individual who was revered by the followers of the religion and individuals who were even enemies to the religion. That before Islam came, in the essence of him declaring his message at the age of 40, the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was respected by all individuals. The Prophet was born an orphan, where his father had passed away only a few months after his birth. So he grew up as an orphan. His mother as well passed away soon after. And he was raised by close relatives, being Abu Talib, his uncle. Muhammad, throughout his childhood, was one who was characterized by his maturity and was characterized by his respect and having a sense of being beyond his years. At the age of 12, Muhammad participated in commerce. Muhammad was one who followed Abu Talib, a known merchant of his time, and went on journeys with him and went on his travels. Muhammad was constantly, in a sense, amongst people that were beyond his years and beyond his age. At the age of 20, and this is a very significant point, given that this is an inspiration for people of younger ages, for the youth especially, and an inspiration for anyone of any age. At the age of 20, a significant event took place. It was called the Hilf al-Fudul, or the allegiance of virtues. And this event, or this allegiance that took place, was a reaction to a foreigner from the Meccan area. The individual came and was doing business. And the person he was doing business with was an aristocrat. The aristocrat told him, "I'm not going to continue doing business, I changed my mind." He responded, he said, "But I gave you my money, you're supposed to respond and give me my goods." He told him, "I don't think so. Take care." So no one helped this individual, this foreigner that came out of the area. He went to one of the hilltops where everyone could see him. And he announced at the loudest of his voice, in the loudest of his voice, he announced, "O people of Mecca, I've come as a foreigner to your locality to do some business, but I have been mistreated by you, and no one is here defending me, defending my right. Is there any individual amongst you that will come forward and respond to this issue?" Muhammad came. Muhammad, at the age of 20, came and he said, "O people, this is a person that's a foreigner to us. It is not like us to respond to him in such a way. We are people of hospitality, we are people of respect and virtue." So he said, "Let us establish an association, an allegiance, a pact where we are going to respect these contracts and ensure that people's rights are protected when it comes to business and commerce." That was established by Muhammad. Muhammad, in this field and in other social matters, he became known as As-Sadiq al-Amin. He became known as the truthful, As-Sadiq al-Amin, the trustworthy. This was before the declaration of the faith. So everyone knew Muhammad by As-Sadiq al-Amin, because any individual who needed something, they would go to Muhammad. They could trust anything that they had with Muhammad. His character was established with the people in such a way before Islam. And he was very unique in that there weren't many like him. During this time, which was called Asr al-Jahiliyyah, the age of ignorance, which was not necessarily an age of ignorance. Many people refer to it as in the people were backward, they were uneducated, they were unsophisticated. Not necessarily. The age of ignorance was characterized by a depravity of morals. There was a lack of morality. That's what the age of ignorance was about. There's a lack of virtue. So that if you're an aristocrat, you could just say to a person that is of lower status, "Okay, leave, I took my money, no, I'm not going to continue this with you." But with Muhammad, he was instilling these virtues and these morals within people in this very ignorant, with regards to morality, type of time. So Muhammad, when it came to his declaration of the faith, because Muhammad essentially was a prophet all throughout his life, not just at the age of 40. And this is an essential belief of the followers of Ahlul Bayt, the Shia, that Muhammad was immaculate, infallible, perfect, any of those synonyms, all throughout his life. And that the blessing of his prophethood was not something that just came at random. That this individual had a character and had a personality that was apt to receive prophethood. And that's the difference. That this person really worked and really deserved to go forward and say, I am the prophet of God. Because he worked so hard, as in being disciplined in following God's rules. So Muhammad, when it came to the age of 40, when he declared the prophethood by the command of God, many people rose against Muhammad. And many people said to Muhammad that, what are you doing? This is ludicrous. You're going to ruin everything that we have going on with regards to our idols, the business that we have going on in Mecca. You're going to disrupt all of this. He said, what changed? Wasn't I known to you as the Sadiq al-Amin? Was I known to you as the truthful, the trustworthy? Even the closest people to Muhammad went against him. That his uncles Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl, they used to go and confide in him before he declared his prophethood. They used to trust in him. They used to go to him for advice at his young age. But once it came to him declaring the prophethood, they just didn't like the idea of a younger person coming forward and being their leader. So much so that when it came to the event of the invitation of the relatives, where Muhammad was commanded by God to invite the nearest of kin and to bring them forward to a feast and invite them to the religion of God. So Muhammad sent the invitation through his cousin and son-in-law, Ali, and brought them to this grand feast. Of course, it was grand in the sense of it was being invited forward by Muhammad, that he was very hospitable and very generous. And they finally asked him, after having all the food and all the drinks and everything, of course not drinks, no alcohol, and they asked him, Muhammad, what's going on? Why'd you bring us to this feast? He said, I have good news, glad tidings. They said, what? He said, I am the prophet of God, and there's no God but God, the one God. There's no God but God, the one God. La ilaha illallah, wa ana Muhammad Rasulullah, or Rasulullah. Some started to laugh, some started to mock, and then it became a little bit more serious. And he said further that anyone who responds to me and follows me and supports me, you will be the successor after me, and you will be the protector of this faith after me. And no one rose but Ali, his cousin and son-in-law, who later became his son-in-law. And he was at the age of 12. Throughout Muhammad's life, he was enfranchising a few significant areas, few significant groups of people. Young people, minorities, or disenfranchised groups like Africans, Persians, anyone outside of the aristocratic group, and women. So much so that the leadership after Muhammad, held by, of course, there's disagreements between the schools of thought, held by the Shia school of thought, was through his cousin and son-in-law Ali. And this was one issue that was especially difficult with a lot of the people of Quraysh, a lot of the Arabs, because this issue of age and following someone younger than you, which the people had a problem with following Muhammad because he was younger than many of the chiefs of the time. They had a problem with that. When it came to some of the closest companions of Muhammad being black or Persian, like Bilal al-Habashi, who was originally an African slave, people had a problem with that. when it came to one of the greatest companions, one of the greatest defenders of the faith, and would be considered to be a social and intellectual and military strategist, Sulaiman, or Afwan, Salman al-Farisi, was one of the greatest companions of Muhammad, and people had a problem with him. When it came to the fact that Muhammad's infrastructure was established and supported by his wife, Khadija, people had a problem with that. So Muhammad came out to be very controversial at his time. He came out to be one that this is very strange, this is going against the norm. And essentially things that Muhammad, the entire purpose of the message, being a message that is reflective, a message that is contemplative, where Muhammad told his followers, an hour of contemplation or an hour of reflection is better than 70 years of worship. 70 years, an hour. Where this religion came out and Muhammad's entire message essentially came to better the state of humanity on an intellectual level. Reflection meaning what? Thinking deeply. Reviewing oneself, reviewing one's actions. Self-introspection. Looking within and saying, who am I? What am I? What's my purpose? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And Muhammad was challenging the very foundational things that were essential to the Arabs and the chiefs of the time. The chiefs of the Arabs at the time. Some of those things, and being on a societal level, other than the foundational disbelief in one God, where polytheism was what reigned at that time, that Muhammad established through all of the things that he did, a system and a network of significant reflection to see we're here, we need to be way over here. And this is something that was universal and perpetual. That it doesn't stop at the time of Muhammad. It continues on every single day. That Muhammad challenged racism. Muhammad challenged discrimination against women. Muhammad challenged any type of discrimination. And was delivering a message of self-enfranchisement, essentially. That's what the religion of Muhammad is. It's not a religion of simply do's and don'ts, of the halal and the haram, what's permissible, what's not permissible. The what's permissible and not permissible is the framework of ensuring that you go back to that reflective state. The reason why we have, for example, as Muslims, 5 prayers daily is because it's a constant reminder of remember where you came from. Remember where you're going. Don't be forgetful. Don't be heedless. That conversations like this are healthy to remind ourselves essentially of that purpose. So, to move forward and in more detail, I'm kind of just giving a general abstraction of what this discussion is going to be basically about. Muhammad in his manners, when individuals insulted him in front of him, Muhammad's reaction usually was made up of a smile. Muhammad's reaction usually was, may God bless you, may God gift you. There is a beautiful story that took place when Muhammad first proclaimed his message. And that story was, he was walking along one day, and an old woman was carrying a lot of, let's say, groceries. She had a lot of things with her. She was walking home, and she seemed to be struggling with the items that she was carrying. Muhammad came to her and asked her, can I help you with your items? She said, oh, thank you, young man. That's so kind of you. and he started helping her, took her bags, and was walking along with her. So this older woman told Muhammad, you know, young man, you're so kind and you're so helpful. No one was helping me. Thank you so much for your time and your efforts. I want to give you a piece of advice since you've been so very kind. He smiled. She said, you know that Muhammad person that everyone's been talking about lately? Stay away from him. He's misled all the weak ones, all the poor people, all the slaves. He's made them think that they have some type of new-founded identity, some type of wealth beyond tangible means, some type of freedom by just following him in his ways. He's corrupted all the youth. He's made the youth go against their parents. He's making people think that there's only one God. What kind of thing is he preaching? If I ask you, you're a young man, you might not know this, stay away from him. He's not a good man. Thereupon the Prophet smiled. And throughout that long journey to her home, she continued talking about this piece of advice. Stay away from Muhammad. He's not good for people. Stay away from him. And he smiled. Finally, they got to the house. And right before she was opening the door to go in and tell him thank you and farewell, thank you for all your help, she said, I've been so preoccupied in giving you this wonderful advice, I forgot to ask you, young man, what's your name? He smiled. And he said, Muhammad. Upon that, the older woman dropped what she had in her hand and gave testament that there's no God but Allah, but God, and Muhammad is the Holy Prophet. When I remember that story, when I hear it or when I say it and I tell it, it's a basic reminder of the way you act and deal with people, your manners. Because the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, I have only been sent to perfect the peak of manners, or the best of manners. That's what I've been sent to do. لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمِ الْأَخْلَاقِ. The best of manners. That's my mission, that's my goal. So the way we deal with people, that was one of the instrumental things of the message of Muhammad. The way you deal with people. So when I come into a room and I see people I know, am I bitter or am I smiling? Am I pleasant or am I really the person that, man, I wish I didn't see that person today? There's very simple things that the religion of Islam has as really its foundation. But unfortunately, we neglect these things sometimes and are represented otherwise. When it comes to the recent events that took place with regards to the insulting film on the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. See, a lot of individuals, a lot of groups reacted in a way that was seen to be violent, that was seen to be intolerant. Individuals were killed. Innocent people died. And that's something that the religion of Islam and the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, would never condone. And this is actually something very significant to mention about one of the principles of the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt, the Shia. That the sanctity of life is first and foremost one of the most sacred things in the world. The sanctity of life, any life. Taking a human life is so sacred that it's as if you've killed the entire population of the world, our narrations say. So when it comes to individuals that take the religion into their own hands and say that they're defending the faith or defending these principles, defending the Prophet, and killing innocent individuals, that's something that is completely outside of the religion. And discussing this with other groups and other individuals before, especially non-Muslims, people are kind of baffled by certain types of reactions. One response we could give, and just contemplating, trying to be objective about it, is that people are very passionate and very emotional about things that they hold dear. Now, if it's so passionate and emotional that they're going to respond by, let's say, harming people, that's a red line, that's unacceptable. So, how do you react to that? Is it now that, oh, look, people are so violent of this faith, they can't hold themselves together, they're not civilized? No, not necessarily. Because you have so many other individuals, and I hope people followed this. Places like in Norway, places in the States, places in Canada, other Middle Eastern countries, while the issues in Libya were taking place, you had many Libyans protesting against the violent acts that were taking place. And those are very significant to pay attention to. Because let's say a small group of individuals from the Buddhist faith, or the Jewish faith, or the Christian faith, be it Catholic or Protestant, come in a small group of people, decide, you know what, we want to defend the faith of Christianity, we don't want the faith of Islam to spread anymore, we want to commit a terrorist act, like individuals committed at 9/11, something that all Muslims abhor and condemn. And they decide to run a plane down, let's say in Saudi Arabia, and kill thousands of innocent individuals. Would the reaction be that the Christian faith, or whatever faith tradition did such a thing, in this hypothetical, would that mean that the faith is responsible for this? No. Is that a group of extremists took it into their own hands to react this way. The responsibility is upon themselves, not upon the faith. That's why, principally as well, the things that we believe in include not generalizing upon people. So if I've had a certain experience, I'm not going to do what some people might claim to be inductive reasoning and say that, oh, I've had this experience with this person from this race or ethnicity or religion, that means they're all this way. That's something that everyone needs to pay attention to. And we need to make sure that we don't go and cross these red lines. Because being condescending and judgmental in these senses and passing these type of judgments are really negative and will cause a lot of negative outcomes in the way we look and deal with one another. So, moving forward, Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, as we said, he came to complete or perfect the best of manners. Even when Muhammad was being trashed, not trash talk, but literally trashed, there was a woman that used to on a daily basis. Back in Dearborn, I take out my trash every Wednesday night. She used to check out her trash every morning when Muhammad used to pass by. And used to make sure that she threw it at him, because she did not like what he stood for. She did not like the idea of one God and Muhammad was the messenger. She did not like the idea that her black slave was as equal to her in the eyes of God. She did not like the idea that if you're not from that if you are from outside of the aristocratic class, that you have rights as well. This woman fell sick one day. And you've all probably heard this story. She fell sick one day. And Muhammad was the first individual to visit her in her sickness. Muhammad was his personality and his character, the way we describe it, to all people, to all individuals. It was consistent. And that is why he is held at such a high esteem. That this individual was unwavering in his principles and his virtues with everyone. That to the people that followed him or the people that hated him, he was still that same person. He was that same person all the time. That Sadiq al-Amin, the truthful, the trustworthy, was from when he was very young until he passed, to everyone. One of the main issues I want to focus on, and this is usually from what I've found, one of the most controversial issues, is Muhammad and women. And essentially, because Muhammad is the prophet of the faith, Islam and women. So what does Islam think of women? What is the role of women in Islam? Islam wouldn't be without women. Simple as that. And every cornerstone of the faith was defended by women. And Muhammad made that loud and clear. Muhammad made a point to say that this faith of Islam that you see, to his followers, this faith of Islam that you see would not rise, would not be existent the way it is without two things. The sword of Ali to protect and defend the faith when we were attacked on all sides, and the wealth of Khadijah. These were two very significant things that Islam at its very young age was continually attacked, continuously. Islam had to defend itself, and the Muslims had to defend themselves constantly. In the very beginning, Muslims had to flee from persecution, where they went to Abyssinia, and then they moved to Medina. And then finally, when they were able to, and when the circumstances were so constraining, they had to defend themselves when they were attacked by militaries. And the Prophet said that it was the sword of Ali that protected the faith. And if it wasn't for that sword, if it wasn't for that defense, Islam wouldn't be. And on equal footing, if it wasn't for the support, the infrastructure that was established by Khadijah, where the Muslims were able to go and flee to safer areas, were able to travel, were able to support the orphans and the poor, were able to provide for the people that were taken out of slavery and liberated by the principles of Islam. That was with the wealth of Khadijah. The injustices done to women before Islam were so grave. It was Islam that really destroyed all of these injustices and made sure that the individuals that were partaking in these things, these very immoral things. And one simple example was the burying of female babies, newborns. Once some of the parents, and during the age of ignorance, the immorality was that high that they didn't care for females. So they decided every time there was a female, some families, they would bury her and they would just get rid of it. The Holy Quran addresses this issue, and Muhammad tells his people, what is the mistake, or what is the sin, what is the harm done by this female baby that you are to commit such an atrocity to it? Things like that were completely outlawed. And the treatment of women was established in a way where, listen, you can't disrespect or devalue or treat any differently a woman simply because she's a woman. You can't do that to anyone, in fact. The individual in the eyes of God is one that is superior only in taqwa, only in piety, and that's a relationship simply between you and God. So that's not something that an individual from the outside can come and judge. I can't come and say, well, I'm more pious than you, so now I'm superior, now I can mistreat you. That goes against the essential nature of piety. So it was established in a way, okay, if you're going to speak of any type of superiority, it's only through this piety and this relationship that you have with God. And that's something that you keep between you and your Lord. That's it. Other than that, the way you deal with people, the way you interact with individuals, the way you have your relationship with the rest of mankind is one of fair treatment. If you don't see that you would like someone to treat you in a certain way, you're not supposed to treat them that way either. Continuously through the Holy Quran and through different events, at the life of the Prophet, women were continuously being honored. Where when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was at a time ridiculed by some of the Arabs and told, oh Muhammad, you're not going to have a lineage. Because there was a time where Muhammad he had a few children with his wife Khadija, and they were newborns and they died very soon after. Boys. Because there was this held belief that your lineage does not go or does not grow except by the male. Going back to those original ideas that the female does not have value. Upon that, the Holy Quran tells us, and God sent the angel Gabriel to recite the revelation where he said, إِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ الْكَوْثَرَ فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ إِنَّ شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَرُ. That we have given you Al-Kawthar. And this is two meanings. One, Al-Kawthar being who became his newborn very soon after, Lady Zahra, his daughter Fatima al-Zahra, who is also considered to be the greatest woman to ever walk this earth, her amongst her mother Khadija, Lady Mary, the mother of Jesus, peace and blessings be upon them, and Asya, the wife of the Pharaoh. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. We have given you this blessed child. Al-Kawthar also referring to a pond in paradise, graced by Lady Zahra. فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. So pray and prostrate before your Lord. إِنَّ شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَرُ. The one who's ridiculing you, trying to humiliate you, he is the one without lineage. Because look and see to this day, what lineage is recognized more than any of the lineages amongst those Arab chieftains? No one but Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him. And the Immaculates, the Imams, their lineage was through Fatima al-Zahra to the Prophet, through a female. The entire foundation of establishing this connection between the follower of the faith, the Imam, the Prophet, and God was through a female. On the day of Mubahala, where the Christians of Najran came and challenged the Prophet and told him, O Prophet, O Muhammad, you claim yourself to be a prophet, we challenge you to a debate. The Prophet said, fine. They exchanged a little. They decided, you know what, let's just have a debate. The Prophet said, fine. Bring yourselves, your women, and your children, or your sons. And he said, I will bring my sons, my women, and myself. And in Arabic it's anfusana, so it's ourselves. Who did the Prophet bring to this debate with the priests of Najran? High profile individuals, scholars of the Christian faith. Who did the Prophet bring? Because it sounded like there was going to be a delegation. There was going to be a huge number of individuals. He said, our sons, our women, and ourselves. Ourselves, he brought himself and Ali ibn Abi Talib. Our women brought one woman, Fatima al-Zahra, because she sufficed. Our sons, Hassan and Hussein, his grandsons, 6 and 4 years old. Oh Lord, you brought a 6 and 4-year-old. Before they even came to debate, they saw them from afar and said, what is that? There's a light emanating in the distance. And they discussed amongst themselves and they said, okay, who is that? One person came and said, hey, that's Muhammad and Fatima and Ali and Hassan and Hussein. They said, okay, there's light coming in the distance. I don't think we're going to win this debate. So they left. But the significance there was what? Muhammad made a point by delegating these individuals, especially by delegating that we're bringing women with us. They said, let's challenge to a debate. Let's set it up. He said, okay, fine, we'll set it up. But we're going to come as in, this is the representation of our faith. Ourselves, our women, and our sons. Enfranchising youth, young people, enfranchising women, and establishing that the forefront of the faith can and should be represented by women and young people. So going against all of these really established things within Arabia that nobody would even consider and would essentially look at as something being completely wrong. More on women, that Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, the 6th Imam, said, however much the faith of a man increases, his regard for women increases. Foundational beliefs, principles that we have. If you have faith, if you call yourself a believer, if you call yourself someone that is adherent to the faith, you must have respect and regard for women. And however much that increases, this increases. Someone came up to the Prophet one day and asked him for advice. Said, "Oh Prophet, please give me some advice." He said in Arabic 1 word, in English translated 2 words. Your mother. Okay. Said, give me another piece of advice. Said, your mother. Give me another piece of advice. Your mother. And your father. Meaning what? Make sure that you are going to constantly be paying attention to your mother. Why? Because the Prophet also said, heaven is at the feet of your mother. Heaven is at the feet of your mother. A person who converted to the faith at the time of the Prophet, he was Jewish, converted to Islam, he asked the Prophet, "O Prophet, since I converted to the faith, how should I treat my mother now? How should I be with my mother? She's still Jewish. What should I do?" He said, "You treat her better than you used to treat her." Okay, so he went home, started doing more chores, started helping around the house more, being more respectful. She looked at him and said, since you converted to this new faith of Muhammad, you've become so much better. He said, my Prophet says that heaven is at your feet. I have to do this. So these were the principles, the all-encompassing principles that Muhammad was establishing. One thing that I always like to mention from the Treatise on Rights by Imam Zayn al-Abidin, the son of Hussein, the son of Ali. And I encourage everyone to read this, the Treatise on Rights. You can actually Google it, Treatise on Rights, Imam Ali Sajjad. I think if you just write Treatise on Rights, you'll probably come up with it as well. It's on alislam.org. You could find it there. He talks about the right of the mother. He says, the right of your mother is that you know that she carried you where no one carries you. She gave to you the fruit of her heart, that which no one gives to anyone. And she protected you with all her organs, something that no one else could do. She did not care if she went hungry as long as you ate. She did not care if she went thirsty
as long as you drank. If she was unclothed, as long as you were clothed. If she was in the sun, as long as you were in the shade. She gave up sleep for your sake. She protected you from heat and cold, all in order that you might belong to her. This acknowledgement of the value of women is foundational to the faith. And I'm going to continue repeating this. Because a lot of times, unfortunately, we hear the sense of Islam does not respect women, does not honor women, belittles women. If you are a true Muslim and you are truly following the principles of the Prophet, you don't put women on a pedestal. You acknowledge that they are already on a throne. That's our respect to women. That's how we look at our mothers. That's how we look at our wives. That's how we look at our sisters. And if we are not doing that, and we're not giving them that respect and value, we need to go back to the foundational and the essential purpose of the religion, which is reflective. Take that hour of contemplation and do your 70 years of worship. Take 5 minutes of contemplation, and it will be some years of worship as well. That's something that we all need to do. In revisiting and reassessing our idea and the way we look at ourselves and look at the people around us. And just for the married couples and the bachelors and bachelorettes out there, I'm going to throw in some hadith about marriage. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if anyone wishes to meet God in purity, then he should meet him with a wife. And Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam said in a narration, he said, my father was visited by a man one day. And my father asked him, he said, do you have a wife? Are you married? He said, no. He said, my father then paused for a moment. He said, I would not prefer to have the world with all its riches while I sleep at night without a wife. This is the value of marriage, the value of women. They're held at that esteem. And these are the direct sayings of our infallibles, of our immaculates. These are the principles. Not things that are fabricated by individuals that call themselves representatives of the faith, or call themselves to be revivers of the faith. Anytime that you have an individual that calls themselves an adherent of any religion, especially Islam, and goes to the point where he discriminates against anyone, is racist against anyone, belittles women, or women belittling men, sometimes that happens. If any of that happens, that should be a red flag. And if that person is conscientious enough, they should revisit that themselves and assess, I'm going the wrong way. And essentially should be a way for individuals to go back and say, I need to assess and see, what was Muhammad really saying? What did he say? Not what was he really saying. Just go back and revisit what he said. They're loud and clear. They're loud and clear. Does not matter what color of skin you have. Does not matter what ethnicity you came from. Does not matter what family you came from. The individuals that were with Muhammad were people of high status and low status. And he made sure, one individual came to the Prophet and he told him, he was considered to be one of the chieftains, and said, okay, I declare myself to be a follower of God, and you, O Muhammad, I'm a Muslim. Great, welcome to the faith. So what do I get now? What do you mean, what do you get? So what are you going to give me? I've brought myself to your faith. I've made this sacrifice, so what are you giving me? There is a sense of entitlement by individuals. That's what Muhammad destroyed by establishing the principles in the faith. It still exists, and a lot of times you see it by the actions of groups and individuals, and they attribute the title of Islam to it. When really it was the individuals that came forward and they were fighting against the Prophet. They came later into the faith, known as at-tulaqa. And this is a significant point, I'd like to mention it. That there were individuals that once Muhammad and the Muslims came back to Mecca, they surrounded Mecca, and they were in large numbers. The people, the polytheists that were against the Muslims and had persecuted them outside of Mecca, wanted to go up and fight them. They realized there were such large numbers, they decided, you know what, yeah, we can't do this. Sorry. Sorry guys in the back, we're not going to fight them, we're all going to die. And Muhammad just came with his people. Those people, a lot of them, they were considered to be at-tulaqa, meaning the freed slaves. Because at that time, some of the laws of war were that the individual was taken at the victory of the battle, were that they were considered to be captives of the battle, of the other side. And Muhammad freed them all, said, you're not captive, you're free. And those individuals, they, in order not to fight, they converted to the faith. Muhammad freed them. So a lot of these individuals afterwards came and were noted to have said, we couldn't destroy the religion of Muhammad from the outside. We're going to try to destroy it from the inside. So that's why you still have sometimes, all the way from back then, individuals that, or groups that come and try to represent the faith and say really bogus things or do really things that are very extreme and go against the very principles of faith, like killing innocent individuals, harming people, taking people hostage, things in that nature, things that the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, whom people used to insult him and throw garbage at him, and he used to smile at them. He used to smile back at them. These were the manners, this was the personality of the Prophet. This is the way he dealt with people. This is the way he was with people. And I'd like to end it there because I'd like to hear more from you all. I don't like to spend too much time talking. I know sometimes there's a lot of information. There's a lot of things we can talk about. But I'd like to shift gears and jump into the Q&A and see what kind of feedback you all have, questions. Let's have a discussion. I think it'll be useful. So if anyone has any questions, go ahead. Okay, if you can say it in both Arabic and English, that would be great. If you can only say in English, I guess I'll try to translate in Arabic and vice versa, Arabic and English. So we'll try to have that so everyone is engaged.
Okay, I do have a question. For Muslims, we found a big gap between Muslims' behavior and Islamic principle. So all what you said about Muhammad is perfect, but how we can, or why there is a gap between Islamic principles and between Muslims' behavior?
Very good. Essentially, the gap between Islamic principles and Muslim behavior. That's like saying, and essentially what it is we have this holy book, the Quran, which is accompanied by the order of the Prophet with his holy family, Ahlul Bayt, as in to be the representation, the manifestation of the Quran. As in, I take these principles and I look at them, how do I make sure that those are manifested in my daily life? We look at Muhammad and his holy progeny that protected the faith after him, the Imams. So if I have these things, these principles, these universal principles, why is there a gap between that and what I do? Well, essentially it's because, and this is a blessing as well, every individual has free will. You choose what you do in this life. You make your own decisions. You're not mandated in the sense of, if you don't do this, you just have to do it. No, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God gives you the free will, but tells you there's consequences for your actions. So you might go into the discussion of the intellect and taking these principles with the intellect and having the strength of the intellect and reasoning that this is better for me, I'm going to go with it and do it, versus desire, anger, imagination, and these different powers that the human has. And say, you know, sometimes these different powers with regards to your anger, your desires, your imagination and things of the such might overpower those things. Like the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and his holy progeny told his followers, and also through the holy book, as in, do not doubt each other in a negative way. Because negative doubt is bad for you. Essentially, that's the principle behind it. So don't have negative doubts about each other. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Imam Ali alayhi salam comes and he says to his people, to his believers, to the faithful, he says that if you see another individual in a suspicious situation, give them 70 excuses before you come up with a negative conclusion. So, and I tell a lot of times the younger brothers and sisters, some people, they come, oh, I saw this person, I saw this guy, he was walking with this girl, and I know they're not married, and I'm like, well, you don't know for sure. You need to, and I started mentioning so many excuses. You can think this, and that. He's like, why are you giving them so many excuses? And I told him, this is the narration. This is one of our principles. That to instill this positive energy with one another, to make sure that we have a community that's based upon positive thinking instead of negative thinking, you have to follow this tradition. But sometimes you choose not to because of your imagination. Well, I can't help it. Or because, let's say, certain individuals might have a desire to do something. Some people, they might have an immoral desire outside of the institution of marriage. And they go for that. Without strengthening the intellect and making sure that they make moral decisions, they choose to go to something else. It could be the desire, imagination, anger, what have you. Sometimes we're overtaken by anger and we don't think straight. So these things contribute to us not following the principles as they are. And these also, unfortunately, contribute to this sense of, oh, it's more theoretical than it is practical. It's very practical. But at the end of the day, it requires discipline and action. It requires thought and contemplation. It requires for us to do some effort to make sure that we get these things done. Otherwise, we're going to be falling out of line with the principles a lot. Any other questions before I go and I address some written questions? Wow, there's a lot of written questions. Okay, so is there any form of freedom of speech in Islam? Absolutely. Absolutely. Just like how it goes to the freedom of will, free will. You can do whatever you want. However, there's certain consequences. Now, I'm understanding this to be within the context of the discussion that we've been having with regards to free speech and what certain individuals did with creating a film and what have you, or with regards to the cartoon images that were created a few years ago in Denmark. Do we allow such things? As in following the faith, following the principles and the laws of the faith. Of course, an individual of following and practicing the faith of Islam that's a Muslim would not do such a thing, because it goes against our laws. Goes against the jurisprudence of the religion. Hands down. If I go and I insult the Prophet, where's the line? If I go and insult God, there's certain etiquettes and certain things that we observe as Muslims. Our morals are really a high standard. But when other people go and disrespect or insult, do we go and fall out of our standard of morality and our standard of our manners and our akhlaq that the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, established? That's the test. So instead of going forward, because we do have the freedom of speech, especially when it comes to outside of the context of arguing if it's allowed within the jurisprudence of religions, but is it allowed in the jurisprudence of nations? You look at the United States of America, you have that. That's allowed. The freedom of speech is allowed. So be creative, and instead of reacting to the situation of insults negatively, be creative and be positive. How? How am I going to be positive? I was talking about this very issue with another group of brothers and sisters. And I told them, and I mentioned the same story that I mentioned about the Holy Prophet walking with that elderly woman and helping her with her groceries. I told them, let someone go make a video about that. And I challenged that group. It was a group of younger guys and girls. It was high school and college age. I told them, I challenge you to make a video about the story that I just mentioned. You want to help your prophet? You want to support your prophet? You want to show admiration and love and dedication and pride in your holy prophet? Do something creative. Be positive. That's how you create some type of change that's good. You're not going to do anything by holding up a sign and saying, you know, we're against these acts. Of course we're against these acts. Any person that has some type of respect will be against those insults. Now, when it goes to the allowance and the freedom of speech in general, people will go to the discussion and say, yes, freedom of speech is allowed. However, we disagree with insulting any revered figure, whether it be Prophet Muhammad or any other prophet. By the way, one thing that I encourage everyone to do, this reaction that we've had with regards to our holy prophet, you know that our holy prophet Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, is insulted on a daily basis, whether it be through television programming, YouTube videos, a lot of YouTube videos, and a little bit more sophisticated in their technology as well. So our principles need to be consistent throughout. And the reactions need to be based on the teachings of the Prophet. They say there are two sides to every story. So could you give us the Muslim side of the Danish cartoons controversy? Didn't they resemble your Prophet? I'm not sure I'm understanding the question exactly. The cartoons also had a very similar reaction from a lot of Muslims around the world. Do we say that was okay? No, we condemn it, just like we condemn the video. But it also depends, are you going to go and burn tires and kill people? No, that's completely against our faith, completely against our traditions and our principles. They're very basic things. Some people say, no, let everything go. When it comes to insulting our prophet, everything goes. What are we, vigilantes? The prophet came to forbid and prohibit these uncivilized types of reactions. Again, now you come, if you want to objectively analyze the situation and see, okay, why are people reacting to that? I can understand why people react with such passion, completely. Because all Muslims have that type of passion. However, like I said, when you have there's certain powers that the individual has, being intellect, anger, desire, and imagination. When I let one of these powers overcome the power of intellect, that's when I'm going to make mistakes. That's when I'm going to sway from the religion of Islam, the faith of Muhammad. So, the side of the story, it's very simple. There are all of these things. Anytime you're insulting any revered individual, especially the prophets, it's something that we don't accept and we don't condone, something we condemn. But I encourage everyone to condemn in a more creative way. Condemn like the Prophet condemned. How did he condemn? He smiled. Meaning what? He created a positive reaction where the individual, by simply smiling and saying, I'm Muhammad, I'm the Muhammad that you've been talking about. that made the person completely do complete transition and even convert to the very faith that she was trashing. An interesting story to follow suit with that example. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the individual that all Muslims hold to be revered, that gave his sacrifice on the 10th of Muharram, where he said on that day, إن كان دين محمد لم يستقم إلا بقتلي فيا سيوف خذيني. If this religion of Muhammad, my grandfather, is not to remain intact in its principles the way he established it, except by my death, then all swords take me. The sacrifice of Hussein, this individual. When his father Ali ibn Abi Talib was killed, after his funeral, he was walking back to his home, upon which a Syrian man came up to him and told him, "Aren't you Hussein ibn Ali?" Mind you, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Imam Ali alayhi salam, just passed away. He said, "Yes, I am Hussein, son of Ali." He said, "May God curse you and curse your father." And this is a whole different discussion when it comes to the negativity and the animosity against the family of the Prophet very soon after the Prophet passed away. What did Hussein ibn Ali do? His father just passed away. I believe any individual having such sorrow in their heart, if someone cursed their father, they would have definitely, especially who was his father? His father was the successor and protector of the faith after the Holy Prophet, where the Prophet himself said, "Ana wa Ali abawa hadhihi al-ummah," where Ali and I are the fathers of this nation. أنا وعلي حجة الله على عباده. That Ali and I are the proof of God upon His servants. This individual. Hussein, how did he react to this individual that came forward and cursed him and his father? He said, "You seem to be troubled. Are you new to this locality? Are you hungry? Maybe you had a dispute or an argument with your wife that angered you. Are you thirsty? Do you have somewhere to stay? Come to my home. You're my guest." These were the manners. These were the personalities. That was Islam. And that's where we derive our principles and the way we live our lives. Now the brother asked, why is there the gap? It's because we're forgetful and we're heedless to remind ourselves of this very truth. Now, do we have potential? And do we have the positive energy? Yes, we do. But it's hidden away somewhere sometimes. We just need to revive it and remind ourselves. We need to have that hour of reflection that our Holy Prophet, 70 years of worship. Wow. That's something that every individual should take advantage of. Oh yeah, by the way, like usually in these stories, the reaction of the individual that was coming with the animosity asked for forgiveness and praised him. So, wouldn't we want, when we have our prophet insulted, or any prophet insulted, that wouldn't we want people that are doing those things, if we really care, to have a positive reaction to us when we do something good? Yeah, that's what we would want. When people come and see that, oh, look, the Muslims are reacting this way violently again, oh, there goes those violent Muslims. We knew that was true. We have to return to our role models and the people that represented the faith. That's essentially what we need to do. Why, why don't you guys just talk to me? Everyone's just writing questions. But by the way, please, if you do have any questions, and even if you wrote these, if you really want, I like to hear more from you. I don't like, I'm just reading things off. I want to have a conversation. So if you guys would like, raise your hand and let's have a conversation instead of me just reading off things. But as you're comfortable, I don't want, raise your hand. No. I jumped at the opportunity. Okay, so Muhammad seems like a good, honest man who loves Jesus and God. Why does he reject the Holy Trinity? Okay. So, essentially, this is a question of why Islam rejects the Holy Trinity. Because Muhammad is the Prophet of Islam, of this faith that came afterwards. With regards to the Trinity and the held belief by Muslims, regarding Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him. The essential difference is that, one, we don't believe God is anything in the sense of, and here actually I'll just give it instead of trying to abstract it too much. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. Say that God is one. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ. Self-sustaining. لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ. He was not born, nor does he give birth to a son or a daughter or a child. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. And there's no one that's associated with him. God in the Islamic belief is beyond time, matter, and space. God in the Islamic belief, and here are the 5 essential principles of the Islamic faith. Tawheed, which is the oneness of God. That's essential. That with regards to the Trinity, when Muslims see this, and when an individual comes in and analyzes the Trinity, the sense of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, we don't see that in God, because God is one. Going on a logical basis of logical reasoning, which is essential especially to the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt, is that everything in our essential beliefs and our fundamentals is proved logically, through reason. If I have to make a leap of faith to any aspect of my fundamental beliefs, that's something I can't do. That is something that's essential to the Islamic faith. So the first belief, or the first principle, the first pillar, is Tawheed, the oneness of God. There is no God but one. God. Allah is simply the God. One. And some people ask that, okay, well, who created God? And these loops of questions. And essentially, that anything that you want to attribute to, the final cause or the initial cause of all of the things that are is God. Whatever you want to refer it to, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to attribute it to, that's God. That's the belief. So what if this came from this? What if that came from that? The first and the last is God. The second principle of the faith is prophethood. That the messages of God were sent through prophets. And Jesus was one of those prophets, one of those messengers. The belief that Jesus was the Son of God and died for our sins, one, we don't believe that he died. We believe that Jesus was raised again to the heavens, protected by the people that wanted to kill him. And there was an individual that shubbiha lahu, meaning there was someone that was made to resemble him, that was crucified. So this is an essential fundamental difference between the religion of Islam and Christianity, really. It's not something to shy away from. It's a reality that Christians believe that Jesus died on the cross and wanted this fundamental belief. Muslims believe that he didn't. As in, good and honest man, Muhammad, yes, he was. And he was a person of the highest of manners and intellect. And in the Muslim belief that he was the best individual that ever walked this earth. So let's say attributing good and honest man to the belief that Jesus died on the cross or the Trinity, I believe that's a logical fallacy. So having goodness and honesty, we all have goodness and honesty. Just because a Christian doesn't believe in my faith, I'm not going to say they're not good and honest people. That's going along the lines of us and them. We never should have this type of mentality where we establish an us and them relationship. Well, my people and then your people. That creates animosity. That's something that's very important that we need to make sure that we establish. So even if someone disagrees with me and has a whole different belief than me, as long as there's respect between people, that's the most important thing. There's good and honest people everywhere. If I'm going to say that just because a person holds the same religious belief that I do, that makes them a good and honest person, it's not a good way to go. Really, it's not. Don't move forward to be the judge. It's a very fine line. Don't move forward to be the judge. Imam Ali alayhi salam tells us, look at yourself, analyze yourself, judge yourself before you go on to judge others, lest you be judged. At the end of the day, we all are going to be judged by our Creator. Now, the responsibility of the individual is what? I make decisions in my life, free will. So, the beliefs that I'm going to have, my religious beliefs, the ones that guide every aspect of my life, hypothetically or theoretically, that's a decision I'm making. If I'm going to hold the belief that Jesus Christ died on the cross for my sins, and I believe in the Trinity, based on what? Go, I challenge you. Also, as a Muslim, the faith that you hold, go, find out. Islam enfranchises people to use this. That's what it's about.
Can we go with another question?
Tfadal.
My second question will be about that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, has built the brotherhood between Al-Ansar and Al-Muhajirin. And we are still like fight, or I will say argue with between Muslims, Sunni and Shia, or between Muslims and Christian. So how we could bring this to our era and figure out a solution to create a brotherhood, a society, and then follow the Imam al-Mahdi, or as Christians say it, Messiah. So how we can follow the Imam al-Mahdi and with this society?
It's a great question. And it ties into the general themes that we've been talking about. So, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, when the Muhajirun, people left Mecca, came to Medina. Medina, the people, the Ansar, they were the people that assisted the Prophet or helped the Prophet, supported him. Muhajirun, the people that left Mecca with the Prophet to Medina. The Prophet made a pact of brotherhood where every individual from this group had to become the brother of that group, and he paired them himself. He paired them. Where this Muhajir went with this Ansari and vice versa. And then at the end, the brother of the Prophet was Ali ibn Abi Talib. Also a general theme that's seen in our history. So how do we bring that today? Make it alive between Muslims and Christians, within Muslims, because there's a lot of conflicts, and throughout the history of Islam, we've seen conflicts within Islam, and between groups that nowadays most people, they just attribute the Shia and the Sunni. There were a lot of other groups also within the realm of Shia and Sunni, but there was a lot of different groups. So much so that you had, at the time of the Prophet, the Muhajirun and the Ansar. And some were saying, oh, we're the supporters of the Prophet, we're better. We're the people that left with the Prophet and were dedicated to him, we're better. So the Prophet made sure that every individual was paired with these people. Now, how do we do that today? We make sure that we follow the principles and the practice of the Prophet by, listen, you have differences. Discuss them. Once we come, and some brothers, especially with regards to the Shia Sunni unity type thing, okay? Once you, which is a very important subject, you come to this idea of Shia Sunni unity, or even Muslim and Christian unity, or Muslim and Jewish unity, all these things, all these subjects, all people. The point is to be open and tolerant to discussion and dialogue, and don't be hostile against anyone. People disagree. Bring forth the evidence and talk about your differences. However, don't compromise your own beliefs. If you feel that through the discussion that, you know what, I'm reassessing, I'm seeing this logically makes more sense, let's continue to discuss this and find out further. But it's about using this. This is also one of the main themes that I want to continue establishing, using the intellect. So that's the way we do it. I'm going to look at a couple more questions because it's nearing the time of prayer, so we would have to conclude. So let me just look at a couple more, and if anyone has any quick questions, just raise your hand. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Just to address regarding 9/11, if Muhammad and his religion are peaceful, then how do you justify 9/11? Well, I believe we talked about that briefly, and regarding that, the principles of the faith are different than certain outlier type actions that are taken upon individuals that aren't really following the faith. So just because a small group of individuals does something, it does not mean that that represents or reflects the principles of the faith and its beliefs. Some of these questions are written by, they look like the same handwriting, so maybe one person had a lot of questions. Okay, these are long questions. So it's time for prayer? Almost? No.
This is just a comment. It's not.
Yeah, tell them.
This happened a long time ago, like in the late 80s. I had a friend. We were at Saudi Arabian guy, and this is really something to do with how people react to anything you say. There is a guy who was at the airport in Saudi Arabia, and he had something to do with his faith. He's a Shia. So they start arguing at the airport, and he insulted the king. So they beat the hell out of him at the airport. So I was talking to this guy here in the United States. I was telling him, why did they have to beat him? He just said something. He didn't hurt anybody. The guy, what he said makes sense. He said, I told him, you know, people say bad things about God, and nobody does anything to them. But when they say something about a king or a person, they do that to him. He said, yeah. I said, why? He said, because if you insult God, God forgive you. But if you insult the king, he doesn't forgive you. So he's right. This is what part of reaction humans do. And the other thing is, I was wondering if you would have touched on, you know, I attended churches, and I listened to a lot of pastors. The difference between Shia faith, especially people, we argue a lot and we ask a lot of questions about the little things. Make sense or not? Other faith, you go in, they sit and listen and go home to the same story. If it's Sunday, every Sunday, or every Friday prayer, whatever. But us, we ask everything. So that's what I wanted to, like, if you would have made comment to everybody here, that we ask a lot of questions because we like to know. We don't like just to sit and listen, God is 1 or 3 or 5. We want to know. Tell me why you're saying he's this and that. Why does he do this and he doesn't do that? Why doesn't he give me $500 million, for example? Thanks.
Thank you, brother. That was that was a really good statement, and in the essence that the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt, the Shia, that because there's this essential belief that you have to have your principles based on logic and reason, based on the intellect, that we don't accept anything that's outside of that. We don't have a leap of faith. We don't just sit and listen. In the sense of, not that you're rebellious, but in the sense of you want to know. And this is something that generally you do find across the board when it comes to Shia groups. And that's, I encourage anyone to, whatever background you're from, whatever faith that you hold, ask questions. It's good. And I've had discussions with people that are agnostic, that are atheists, that are from different faiths, and some of them ask questions and then they stop at, well, I can't explain the existence of God. Just having a 5-minute conversation, he was like, man, no, that makes sense. So you just needed to ask a little more questions. Don't stop and ask one question and stop there. Be like, oh, I guess I don't have an answer now. Continue to ask questions. And make sure that you follow up and try to find the answers. Some people come and they become satisfied with, I've never received the answers. I've asked a few questions. I haven't found any good answers or have any answers. That means there are no answers. No, there are answers. But you just need to have a consistent effort. But that was a good comment.
By the way, I don't know if there's any Christians in here, but I asked, one time I used to be working with a girl from Venezuela. And we started talking about, she started mentioning religion and stuff like that. And I asked her, why do you, we end up talking about Virgin Mary. And I asked her, I don't know what led the question is to, she said she's not virgin. I said, well then if she's not virgin, why you call her Virgin Mary? She said, I don't know, that's what they call her. That's her name, is Virgin Mary. Things like this. I couldn't argue with her because I'm not a religious guy that I can tell her why and why not. Because I believe that she was virgin, and she didn't believe that she was virgin. So I told her, why don't you ask the pastor? But it went on, and she never came back with an answer anyway. So this happened because I always hear our scholars or our Sayyid or Ayatollah or whatever always ask us to ask questions. And we ask a lot of questions. Ask a lot of questions. You can ask these guys too.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
Okay, I know we finished, so just a quick, it's not a question really, but a comment. Should I or anybody else for that matter have a question in the future? Should we like to contact you or something? Do you have an email, blog, Facebook, a website you can refer us to? Thank you.
Yeah, actually that's fine. And but I do have one request. If you take my email, which I'm just gonna say right now, so if you want to write it down, that's fine. Email me with your name and start a connection with me. So if you take it, start the connection. Meaning, if you have a question, I don't like to just do a touch and go thing. I like to establish relationships with people. I don't believe that I'm just gonna come to this community and then this is the last time I'm gonna see you all. Hopefully these kind of discussions continue. That's what I would like to do. So if you do take my email, then, and I remember it was another night I was in Windsor, and one brother took my email, and then I told him, send me an email right now. He's like, right now? Really, right now? So he got nervous. He's like, really? Okay. So anyways, so my email is, if you have any questions, if you want to have a further discussion, inshallah, j.moughnania@gmail.com. Yeah, this isn't the, Like I know this isn't the way I spell my last name, but J.Moughania@gmail.com. Is that good? Everyone got it? Whoever wanted to take it down? Some people are like, I'm not taking down your email. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Our guest speaker, our audience, again, we appreciate your valuable time, attendance, and we hope that you have gained new knowledge and information and benefited from this lecture. And we hope to see you all again. And again, if you have any question, anything, as he mentioned, just email him. And now we would like to invite you all to have the refreshment there outside, so help yourself and don't hesitate. Thank you so much.